symbolizes the full measure of human dignity and liberty. Revolution Radio listeners, the sun is rising across this great United States, and that means straight from the heart of Texas, it is time for Clayton Douglas, the Free American. Take it away, Clayton.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of the Free American. My guest today is Gordon Duff. He's editor at Veterans Today. And before I open the mic to him, I want to share something with you. It's summer across America. Americans visit memorials and graves of the fallen, attend patriotic events, but the undercurrent of disappointment and even fear pervades. Americans know their government has lost its way and look to the military to fix the problem. It isn't going to happen. From Vietnam onward, the military has been on a slide into mediocrity, and not in weapons and firepower, but in moral courage and a sense of duty. Those words come from Gordon Duff. Hello, Gordon. How are you?
Well, good morning, Clay.
Good morning, sir. This is an article. I've been reading this article this morning before you came up, and my congratulations. You know, occasionally I run across articles and I go, God, I wish I'd wrote that. You know, you said at the beginning that friends who worked in the Bush White House, not just the National Security Council, but presidential advisors on intelligence and counterterrorism, told of Bush's gay mafia, made up of the majority of top leadership, names every American has heard on the news. Now, you know, we heard from Kathy O'Brien that George Bush not only was a child molester, but other things. And I just watched a documentary on the Iran-Contra affair with Ollie North, who actually for a few years there we were kind of conflicting because he was putting out a free American piece, magazine or newsletter or something like that. And I watched him testify about this at the Iran-Contra. Now, Iran-Contra made the news, but the part I was interested in is he's testifying before Congress, and he's asked by one of the senators about, weren't you, Oliver North, weren't you involved in this continuity of government thing? Weren't you Rex 84? Weren't you? And he stopped by the chairman, I believe that was Daniel Inuit from Hawaii, who said, oh, we can't talk about that. That's classified. Can you, and my book, Mystery Babylon, has the whole story of Operation Watchtower, and that was George Bush as CIA director before he became vice president, took the Republicans by surprise. Nobody had any idea that Ronald Reagan was going to bring in the CIA director as his vice president.
Oh, I assure you, Ronald Reagan had no idea of it either.
and of course, it was one of George Bush Sr.'s friends that tried to assassinate Ronald Reagan. I guess he wanted to be president a little early, huh?
Well, he is trying to pass off this idea, and a lot of us didn't get a very good view of what went on during the Reagan administration. Ollie North and Bush and the gang of drug dealers and bankster bandits tried to push the idea that Reagan was mentally incompetent, that Reagan sat in the back seat. And we found that's very much not the case. Not just that, no White House official was allowed to talk to the vice president. He wasn't allowed to meet with the president. He wasn't allowed to be involved in national business in any way. And since he wasn't able to be involved in national business, he got involved in monkey business.
Now, this whole thing goes way back. I've also got links on my site to the USS Liberty and the sellout by Lyndon Baines Johnson, who many people, my sources, believe he was, including his own attorney, believe that he was one of the conspirators in the assassination of President Kennedy. He recalled the U.S. and some even say that he gave the order to Israel to sink the USS Liberty, and that we had atomic weapons on the planes within 3 minutes of Cairo when they were recalled. Any verification on that?
That's very much the case. No, what we've had is we've had an attempt to cleanse the story here. I had people who were on the USS America, and the story was that the planes from the America were sent to save the USS Liberty and were recalled. In actuality, they were sent to bomb Cairo and were recalled because, well, there's another piece to the story here. Planes from the USS America helped attack the Liberty.
These were the unmarked planes, so Johnson...
The unmarked planes were not Israeli planes. The unmarked planes were American planes.
This goes even deeper, and by the way, I also got one article out earlier, linked, that says that LBJ was actually Jewish, and if he wasn't Jewish, he was certainly as much a Zionist sympathizer as our vice president, who just gave the lecture to the Zionist Council here in America, praising the Jews for their stance and for their support of gay rights and same-sex marriages. And that's why when I saw this Bush's gay mafia, that had such an impact.
The gay mafia in the White House didn't support same-sex marriage or gay rights in any way. They just liked molesting children. I had let's see if I can do this here. I might be able to find you a Bush White House official. Let's take a look, see who's on. This is part of what I love about Skype. You can get quite impromptu. Yep, we'll buzz one of those White House officials from the Reagan administration and see if he can answer up.
All right.
We're
now, Kathy O'Brien's book, Transformation of America, not only labeled Bush a child molester, but he was molesting her daughter.
Alex, there's time.
Hi guys.
Alex, now be careful here. You're on the Clay Douglas show with vicious anti-Semites here. You're of them now.
Well, I was watching the documentary last night on the Iraq post-war reconstruction and basically all the flaws that took place in the looting and all this stuff. And, all the key figures speaking up were dual citizen, Israeli. So, what was the benefit? Everyone, makes the claim that, they were just incompetent. The U.S. guys were just incompetent. But really, look at what Iraq's turned into. I mean, who benefited? So, if you want to, you always say I'm, so pro-Israel, but, what's going on there, right?
You mean like all of our bases being lining that pipeline that's running the oil from Iraq straight to Israel?
Is it going directly through Israel?
The last I saw from the satellites.
The pipeline that used to head through Israel hasn't been opened since 1953.
Okay, I'm sorry about that.
I just for speculation, we don't know.
Both Alex and I worked in Iraq as part of the oil advisory group for the U.S. effort there.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
Now, Alex, one of the issues Clay had here, and this is one that we all love to talk about, is the gay mafia in the White House. What did you know about the sexual proclivities? Were there actually gays in the White House that President George W. Bush knew about, and were there illicit sexual activities going on in the White House?
Wow, that's great. I'm definitely not getting invited back to some of the dinner parties.
They're a bunch of assholes anyway. We don't care.
Yeah. Let's see. Yes. The answer is yes. But I know a lot of the guys, and because they're gay doesn't mean that I don't judge people by their sexual, what their sexual background is. But yes, there were a lot of them. And do I know specifically? I wasn't, I'm not homosexual, so I wasn't involved in this stuff, so I didn't see it firsthand. But yeah,
Gwyneth paints Richard Clark as one, of course.
Well, I think most of them were. I think that one of the reasons why I didn't fit in there was I wasn't gay, and everybody was. And I think that was one of the reasons why they pushed me out. Yeah.
Tell the audience what you were warned about.
Well, there was always that. There was always the rumblings of being forced to do something under the guise of, if not, you don't move up type stuff. I mean, that was always, there were some rumors about that. Because you definitely could, there were guys that moved up because they were, a little bit closer to the key people than others. Is that well put?
Yeah, you don't have to be that careful. This is a kind of a violent audience you've got here now. This isn't Mike's audience. How about at the Pentagon? What were things like there? The group I worked with in the Pentagon.
Pentagon. The only thing that I found interesting is there were just a lot of dual citizens.
Like Alex, Rabbi Duff Zackheim that lost, couldn't account for $2.6 trillion bucks.
Yeah, I met Duff. I worked for him, and I worked in policy. I worked for Doug Fife, and I wasn't in the day-to-day all the time with specifics, but I was a very junior staffer at the time. I was 24. And at the White House, I was an intern, but I come in through. My father had been a senior official in Reagan and Bush administration, so I was juiced in the sense that my dad knew everybody who was in power, even the Bush family. So I had some in, but for me, I didn't fit in there. It just didn't fit in. It was just kind of ironic. I left like a week before September 11th. I went back to college in California, and then September 11th took place, and then I came back to Washington. I worked at the White House again in the Faith-Based Community Initiative, and then I ended up over at the Pentagon before we invaded Iraq. And I was there in Iraq, and then I ended up working for Paul Bremer in the Coalition Provisional Authority in Iraq.
Were you there? Were you there when Rumsfeld had the conference? I think this was just a couple of days before 9/11, and he brought Duff up there, the chief.
Yeah, all that trillions of dollars that was missing.
Yeah, 2.6 trillion. Yeah.
It was September 10th. It was released on September 10th, and no one cared to read it because the morning after was the attack.
That was convenient. I referred to that just for your information, by the way. I've been demonized by these dual citizens like ADL, Southern Poverty Law, for starting the militias. They just don't tell you I did it in the governor of New Mexico's office, Governor Gary Johnson. And then when I referred to 9/11 on the air as an exaggerated case of Jewish lightning, and put building number 7 on my March issue with Larry Silverstein's quote, and pointed out that if you pull building number 7, you had to have explosive planted there before 9/11. And what are the odds that the other two weren't? They tried to kill me on May 20th, 2004, but right after Amdocs and Converse were hired by the NSA to tap everybody's cell phones. They tapped mine and used that to set up an accident.
Well, see, I depend on them tapping my phone because I lose my voicemail messages all the time, and so I can always call them up and get them back.
Well, it's, I'm out of the country at the moment, but what's going on with this NSA stuff? Are people, you guys must be fuming at Clay. I mean, your show must be hot all day. This guy's a patriot, by the way. This young man.
Snowden?
He's a patriot.
Snowden, yes.
Yeah, he's a patriot. He's a patriot.
Now, Alex, let me jump on the other side on this one. How long has the NSA been tapping telephones?
Probably forever.
Yeah.
When did they stop?
So let's say this. Let's say he's been working for the CIA for some time. If you're going to bring revelations out, now, you work for the Pentagon in a high security job. Who's responsible for 9/11?
Well,
Go ahead and say it.
It wasn't the Taliban.
Yeah, go ahead and say who's responsible for 9/11.
Well, we don't. Here's the thing. Here's what I still don't know about 9/11 is we don't. I believe there were definitely, like the Rockefellers and Rothschilds were involved in it. These had the most to benefit, the banking cartels, the Federal Reserve, to start pinning it all. I'm sure the Project for New American Century guys were involved. They all knew. The media was involved. It was all planned. It was scripted. It's the same way they did Kennedy.
Doesn't that make you a hero? Because this guy doesn't know about 9/11. He knows it. He knows that the NSA tapped telephones. Oh my goodness.
Right, but you gotta understand something. It's just for the same reason I don't want to talk about any of this stuff. I never had the clearance levels that he had. So I mean, what I'm saying is speculation, of course. But the thing is, he doesn't want to get tapped out. Maybe he doesn't want to die tomorrow. Because they're just gonna kill him.
Yeah, but Ron Paul says they're gonna kill him with a drone. On the other hand, what if what he's saying? Why is he saying what he's saying now? Because first of all, who gives a shit if the NSA taps phones or not? We know they tap our phones. Clay, how long have they been tapping your phone?
Well, the story broke after my article on 9/11 came out in the March issue of my nationally distributed Free American magazine. It was, and I referred to it on the air. That was May 20th. I got tapped. I got hit. I got run over by some broad.
Of what year?
2004. The story broke in the New York Times in April of 2004. My magazine came out in March. In April, the story broke in New York Times that the NSA was tapping everybody's phones, but it wasn't any. The NSA didn't tap anybody's phones. They subbed it out to Converse and Amdocs. Converse became it changed names. They sold the company or changed the companies. Still Israeli controlled.
But Alex and I talk all the time, Alex and I, all of our discussions are certainly international calls. We discuss issues of terrorism. How much of the time are we talking about car bombs and stuff like that? I mean, it's what we talk about regularly.
And sometimes they actually happen after you say it's going to happen. So it's kind of interesting.
Our calls are obviously being recorded. Now the problem is that we're working in the counterterrorism industry, which is like the Dairy Queen industry but with less ice cream. But we expect our calls to be monitored. Now, if you're going to be brave about something here, tell me who murdered John Wheeler III. Did we all forget about who he was?
No, but the story never went anywhere. But
because nobody came forward. Instead, people are coming forward telling me that an organization we pay $17 billion a year to tap our telephones is actually tapping our phones.
Well, wait, can I ask you guys something? Because I'm out of the country, I'm missing. Because I talk to my friends, and everyone's really pissed off now. Is anything gonna change? Are people gonna wake up and finally just unite and do something? Because you just said we spent $17 billion on some service that taps our phones. Why can't we spend $17 billion on rebuilding our neighborhoods? You know, $17 billion could rebuild. It'd be a pretty nice neighborhood, don't you think?
But see, the American people demanded that $17 billion be spent, that we hire Israeli companies to tap our phones because they wanted to give up their freedoms. These are conservative American Christians wanted to give their freedoms up so they could be safe in their bed. So that evil Arabs wouldn't come and steal their virginity.
It's almost comical because, you know, the Israelis are so shrewd. I mean, they're really smart. I mean, they're really smart. And they're just, they're gaming them. They're gaming us, unfortunately. But, we have to, as a country, get over this divide and start really thinking together as Americans and not as, Republicans or Democrats or rich or poor or black or white or, I mean, we all hate each other now because we've just been, divide and conquer. Everybody's been splitting us. And it's a shame.
One of the things I dug up here the other day is George Galloway's interview on Iraq oil in front of the Senate. And Galloway's being questioned by Norm Coleman and then later by Levin. Now, I was a Levin supporter. I've worked with him for some time. I'm from Michigan. He's always been very pro-veteran and, of course, has supported the automobile industry, which we in Michigan hate. But as I watch Levin on this, and I'll do, let's see if I can get a second or two into this. I'm skipping a commercial, and then I will see if I can wind this back.
You know, every time I try to talk about exactly what we're talking about, what's happening, I've got somebody in a chat room somewhere, and I don't even go in the chat room anymore because I don't have. I think I made the comment or something about being stupid. Could they get any more stupid? They took that as a challenge. And I'm reminded of what when Joe McCarthy referred to the communists as being stupid, and James Forrestal disagreed. He said, no, consistency is not the mark of stupidity. If they were just stupid, occasionally they'd make a mistake in our favor.
Let me play a little bit of Galloway's talk here.
Go ahead.
It goes on a little too long, but I want to run a little Galloway.
They killed Forrestal, too.
Beg your pardon, Alex?
They killed Forrestal.
Yeah, threw him out of the window. He said he committed suicide, right?
So, you know,
Now,
guys,
the old Washington rumor. I grew up in D.C. Was they threw him, the CIA threw him out a window.
now,
That was the old Washington rumor.
you know what the
Whispers, as
you know
they
what
used to
the
say.
new you know what the new rumor is that
What's
Hollywood
that?
spread?
What?
That he jumped out of the window because his mind was controlled by aliens.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've I've read that one. I don't think so. I think the CIA just threw him out the window,
Really?
or defense.
You
Yeah,
sure that aliens didn't do it?
Uh, that's too soon. We were going to get into Majestic 13 later, Gordon.
That's all. We're
Majestic
already.
forever.
You're
aliens.
you're the 13th member of the death.
Aliens could throw out all the Obama out of the office. That'd be interesting, don't you think?
Hey, do you understand that? Are you watching the economy here? You know that our deficits are plunging, and the U.S. is close to balancing its budget.
Yeah, can I tell you something interesting? I was on the phone yesterday with the group Billion Dollar Fund, and they're already planning for the collapse of the United States, the dollar. So, I mean, these guys are money. I mean, these are money people, and they're already planning for the collapse. So,
And of
it's pretty
course,
scary. It's pretty scary.
and of course, the U.S. is making a huge financial comeback.
Yeah. Well, they
Now,
have.
here,
Yeah.
let's do a few minutes of Galloway here, going after neocon Norm Coleman, but also Carl Levin, who is an utter and absolute snake.
I have never seen a barrel of oil, owned one, bought one, sold one, and neither has anybody on my behalf. Now, I know that standards have slipped over the last few years in Washington, but for a lawyer, you're remarkably cavalier with any idea of justice. I'm here today, but last week, you already found me guilty. You traduced my name around the world without ever having asked me a single question, without ever having contacted me, without ever having written to me or telephoned me, without any contact with me whatsoever. And you call that justice. Now I want to deal with the pages that relate to me in this dossier, and I want to point out areas where there are, let's be charitable and say, errors. And then I want to put this in the context that I believe it ought to be. On the very first page of your document about me, you assert that I have had many meetings with Saddam Hussein. This is false. I have had 2 meetings with Saddam Hussein, once in 1994 and once in August of 2002. By no stretch of the English language can that be described as many meetings with Saddam Hussein. As a matter of fact, I've met Saddam Hussein exactly the same number of times as Donald Rumsfeld met him. The difference is Donald Rumsfeld met him to sell him guns and to give him maps the better to target those guns. I met him to try and bring about an end to sanctions, suffering, and war, and on the second of the 2 occasions, I met him to try and persuade him to allow Dr. Hans Blix and the United Nations weapons inspectors back into the country.
Okay, I'm cutting it there. We get so much.
At the same time, Gordon, let me ask you this while we've got Alex on the line here too. The recordings the videos that I was watching with with Iran Contra and Ali North testifying before the Senate about Iran Contra, we were supplying Saddam Hussein with chemical weapons to use against Iran, while we were supplying Iran with weapons to use against Saddam, and trying to free our hostages at the same time that they'd kicked our dictator out of Iran. and the Senate was interrupted by Daniel Inoki from Hawaii when one of the senators asked Ollie North about the continuity of government, about Rex 84, about making Americans into terrorists, and suddenly they couldn't talk about that because it was classified, so they never really got into the drug dealing that was going on and in Iraq. And Alex, I'd really appreciate it if you'd just stop off there in Amsterdam somewhere and smoke a joint for me. I'm in Texas, where they threatened me with 99 years for having a joint a few years back, 45 years ago. Actually did time for marijuana in Texas, but I got some books written there.
Clay?
Yes, sir.
I would smoke a joint with you. I'd be honored. But it's gotta be some good kush. I feel bad that you've been imprisoned and your freedoms have been taken because you smoked a plant, an herb. It's a shame, and what it's done is it's created a prison industry. See, when you talk about all of this stuff, we talk about all of this illegal activity that's going on in this black operations. Who benefits? Where's all that money going? There was fortunes being made in Iraq selling those weapons to him. There was fortunes for all the oil that was stolen. There was fortunes for all the drugs that were sold into Los Angeles. There's Freeway Ricky Ross.
Ricky Ross, yes. And let's also mention here that we went to war against those nasty old Taliban because they were destroying the opium poppy crops in Afghanistan. And now we've got our soldiers guarding. Our soldiers are guarding the opium poppy crops, and the pharmaceutical companies are keeping their supply of heroin coming into this country so they can make their 2,000% markup drugs out of it, and put it on the streets. And we've got more Americans in prison now because they got a little bit of something in their pocket, and they're being put in prisons. And they're working for IBM for $2 or 50 cents an hour, 25 cents an hour. Private prisons. Yes.
Some companies making money because some poor 16-year-old kid got caught smoking a joint. And you're right, he's making freaking handbags for some Fortune 500 company as a slave. It is a travesty, and this guy Obama is the worst. They're all frauds, but he's just the epitome of the fraud, because he at least said he was going to change some of this, but of course, just like they all are, they're all bought out corporate whores. And I'm telling you, Clayton, I'm probably not going to live in the United States. I don't really live in the U.S. now. I'm offshore, and frankly, I can't. I'm really fed up with the place. It's just a shame, and people need to. I don't want to be called a coward for leaving or anything, but if nobody wants to stand up and they just want to sit there and be lapdogs, then I'm not going to sit there and be someone's dog. I'm going to go somewhere where there's at least a little bit more freedom.
Well, we've got one state now that legalized hemp, legalized marijuana, and it's already a $1 billion crop in California just for the medical, but I won't go to a doctor to get a prescription for something I can grow in my backyard. To hell with that.
Right, exactly. 9 weeks and you got it. And they have those auto-flowering seeds now where you just plant it and it grows. You don't have to do anything. Look, the thing is, the problem is that up in Humboldt County, California, Philip Morris owns, they own 400 or 500 acres worth of land, because that's apparently the best place to grow the certain Kush type Afghan Kush plant, which is considered the best marijuana. They have 400 acres up there already secured. Philip Morris, the tobacco company. And my father soon as everyone changes their tune, if they do decide to legalize it, they'll make a push to get it in, and they'll try to cut everybody out. But like you said, it's the one plant. There's no monopoly on it.
And
grow it.
I took a little page out of Reagan's book, Mr. Obama, tear down that wall. That wall between us and Mexico ain't there to keep the illegals out, since we got 11 million of them now that they're going to try to turn into Democrats. And we got, let's replace that wall with tables and go back to our original honest form of income for our government. That would be tariffs. And let the Mexicans, let the Colombians, let the Peruvians bring all their drugs up, all their meth, all their cocaine, all their heroin, lay it on the table, pay duties on it, and abolish every law against victimless crimes in America. If we don't have a corpus delicti, we don't have a crime here. Let's release all of these people, give them their rights back so they can bear arms and vote again, and initiate free trade. If you're growing cocaine, bring it up here, lay it on the table, let Americans go down and buy all they want. If they want to kill themselves with heroin, let them. I'd rather do that than pay $50,000 a year to feed and clothe them because of something they had in their pocket. How do you feel about that, Gordon, Alex?
Well, Clayton, I'd rather leave people locked up than have them voting and shooting people. There's nothing more dangerous than uninformed Americans. They turn on the TV and they vote for the wrong people, and we've been voting for the wrong people and shooting the wrong people for a long time. And you know what I mean by shooting the wrong people, don't you, Clayton?
Yes, sir. I certainly do. I started the militias after watching the BATF shoot 17 little children to save them from a child molester, and I started the Free American magazine after I saw the press trying to sell you on that. And of course I've been demonized and hated ever since by the establishment.
Well, I think demonizing you is one of the few growth industries we have. Alex, did you get a chance to go to Veterans Today and read Stu Webb's column on the upcoming satanic celebration in Denver?
Yeah, I'm pissed. I didn't get invited. I love sacrifice. All right, hold on. Let me check it out.
Now, by the way, Stu will be on my show tomorrow. I read that, and since it's important, I thought I'd bring Stu up tomorrow. He is a columnist for Veterans Today.
Well, that's the key. I mean, it's so that's the truth. I mean, he brings up a good point. I mean, that's the other. You have the secret societies. You've got Skull and Bones. You have out of Yale, who basically, you look at Iraq, Bremer. You have the President Bush. There are a few others that were connected, and then you have, there are all types of. Then you have the satanic groups, which are powerful. They're underground. They run all the illegal stuff, like the drugs, and children and.
The Supreme Court.
Yeah, well, yeah, because they blackmail and that. I mean, that's the inner circle. I'm sure are Satanists. They have to be. I mean,
well, that's the oldest. That's the oldest religion on the planet, so...
yeah, it's just unspoken. We don't talk about it,
Yeah, and by the way, I'm not taking any calls today, so 480, hang it up. I ain't taking no more calls.
Well, one of the things the military tried to duck out of, back in the 1980s, it was discovered that the military had been taken over by Satanists. And they tried to containerize the fact by blaming poor Michael Aquino and trying to say it only happened on the Presidio, and then of course they closed the Presidio down. We have found that the chaplains corps, the Pentecostals, the Dominionists at the service academies are all Satanists, and that the core of the Pentagon are Satan worshippers. The reason we're seeing within the military, pedophilia, we're seeing an epidemic of rapes within the military. It's because we have a military that's been taken over by exactly the same group that took over the Catholic Church.
Can I interrupt real quick?
Sure.
Just real quick. The Pentagon is a pentagram, and it is aligned with the North Star, which is considered powerful for devil worshippers. Okay, that was my interjection. Go ahead. Sorry, Gordon.
Oh, we always call it the pentagram now. I mean, it's
a pentagram. It's a pentagon, but if you add the little points, it's a pentagram. So it was designed that way.
The idea that as soon as some idiot puts on a uniform and struts around, they become a hero. And of course, if you want to debunk that permanently, we can just mention the name John McCain, who now apparently is taken over as the commander of Al-Qaeda.
Yes, Songbird McCain, yes, sir. I don't care if all the factories move to Mexico. I don't care if all the factories move to Mexico. He told me face to face. My son's an engineer. I don't care if all the factories move to Mexico. And he's the one that tried to snowball and shuffle under and demonize all of the POWMIA movement.
Oh yeah, he's a scumbag.
They threatened me. His staff called me up and threatened me for running that story in the Free American. I said, you ever mess with me again, I'll run an article every day written by one of the people in Hanoi Hilton with him. Don't fuck with me ever again. And they haven't.
That's good. Yeah, he's a coward. And the other one is Lindsey Graham, who's probably got a million videos of him, sticking his dick up little boys, what? He's a real scumbag. That one. He's a real sick one.
How about hugging his jailer from North Vietnam? He did that in the Senate, wasn't it?
We have no evidence that McCain had the status of prisoner at all there.
Yeah. Show and tell.
The only thing that we know of him doing is we know that he was when he was in the Hanoi Hilton, he was actually in the Hilton.
I believe that, and making propaganda films for him. Those are classified now, though. We can't see those, right?
And I really wanted to see what he had to say. The 32 films he made, his radio broadcasts, I think we could benefit from that. I've always wanted to be a communist, and I've never known how, and I want a real communist to explain it to me. John McCain, Johnny Boy, release the tapes. Tell us how to become good communists. We want to know. Inquiring minds.
I think they're showing us there, Gordon. I mean, maybe I'm wrong here, but I volunteered for Vietnam in '64. I didn't go because they tried to kill me before I got there. Evidently, I scored too high on OCS test. I went in. I was really upset. I said, I want to know why I didn't get OCS. I've never failed a test. Oh, you didn't fail a test. You scored so high on the test, they won't let you be an officer. They said you won't follow orders. No shit, Sherlock.
Reading, what's his name's article, Stu Webb. This is gross, but he really, he's got, from what, Gordon, I mean, you know him better, but I mean, he really, he was married into the Mizell family?
Millman, I believe.
Well, no, yeah, Millman is his son-in-law.
DC Holdings. So they're gonna murder some kids this weekend or something? That sucks.
And see, Obermeyer and I had a partnership with MDC to import Russia's fertilizer, or actually to market Russia's fertilizer production in 2006. And NBC was unable to pull out the 2.2 billion standby letter of credit that was their part of the deal. So we ended up in litigation, and in doing so, that put me in Mizell and Millman's back in. Now Millman, from what I understand, is currently dead and living in Cuba.
Yeah, that safe island, so they can they put up radio towers there to guide the independence planes into Cuba, so they could seize the independence drugs. If you didn't have the right codes from the CIA, you didn't get into the country.
Well, Melvin is living in Cuba next to Mitt Romney.
Where Wait, where? Cuba?
Yeah. Well, Romney's a Cuban.
Huh. Oh, that's right. Is he Cuban? He was down in. I know the family's all from Mexico, but they originally Cuban.
Let's see if I can.
You mean the Mitt Romney, the owner of Clear Channel, with all the Mossad working for him?
Oh yeah, that guy. Yeah, that guy. If the American people ever find out what we've done, they will chase us down the streets and lynch us. President George W. Bush interview, June 1992.
Yeah, the same George Bush that was standing outside the school book depository watching his rifleman on the railroad bridge shoot John F. Kennedy. Is that the one?
Yeah. Well, yeah, he's part of that crew. I mean, Prescott, and he goes all the way back.
And I've also got stories up right now. If you go to freeamerican.com, at the top of my site there, I've got even before my show with the links to this show, I've got the what I saw that day, Israel's June 8, 1967 Holocaust of U.S. servicemen aboard the USS Liberty, and I've also got the links to all the stories here that Lyndon Johnson ordered the planes, had the planes standing by to bomb Egypt. I guess they wanted to see if an atomic bomb, if their pyramids could survive that atomic bomb. I say June 8th, 1967, why war should have been declared against Israel 45 years ago. I've interviewed LBJ's attorney. He said LBJ was involved in the Kennedy's assassination, and we know that the first thing he did after taking the oath of office over there fondling Jackie, I guess, on Air Force One, was recall Executive Order 11110 that put these United States notes with the red seal that he recalled all of those. Gordon, would you like to confirm that for me? I carry one of those bills around in my wallet.
Well, he also, yeah, that, yes, and then he also the same day escalated the Vietnam War.
Yes, sir.
Exactly. Yep.
Now,
So yeah, that was well organized. That was military-industrial complex, bankers. That's the same crowd, same group of people. Nothing's changed. That's the point. That's why I say it goes back to really, there are people pulling the strings. The question is, who's really behind all of this? That's the question. Who's in the pyramid on the top?
I personally think Lucifer. I've got my own. I'm working on some novels about this that I started 45 years ago. I think Lucifer may have been the good guy, and Satan was simply posing as God and pretending to be going under the name of Yahweh, and that was the Jewish God that. And Jesus showed up on earth to try to warn us about the Jews who say they're Jews but are not, or of the synagogue of Satan. So how far back does the deception go? I think it goes back 5,000 years, personally, but...
Probably. Yeah, Wow. So.
and poor Alex. Now, Alex, when did you leave the priesthood?
Never. Am I still a priest?
So you're still a priest?
Priest of what? I
You were last time I checked, you were a Catholic priest.
Yep. Every day. I'm just perfect. So
That's an insider joke there, by the way.
yeah, just
Now I have in front of me on República de Cuba. This is my dad's Spanish. Ministerio de Defensa, stationery. A letter from por instrucciones del señor Raúl Modesto Castro Ruz, President of the Council of State, Consejo de Estado y de Ministerios de la República de Cuba, le ordena comunicar mediante la siguiente noticia a su amigo el norteamericano Willis Mitt Romney. We have a letter recognizing him as a friend of Cuba and outlining an agreement of cooperation if he's elected president. That Mr. Romney, this is signed in La Habana, Cuba, 17, and God only knows. Say 17 in Spanish for me.
I know it in French, he said.
Yeah. 17 de Agosto de 2011. And Minister of Defense here is Julio Casas Ruggiero. But
all right, we got to take a break here, and we'll be back for one more hour with Gordon Duff. Stay tuned.
dictatorship. Oh, be quiet. Why are you guys so anti-dictator? Imagine if America was a dictatorship. You could let 1% of the people have all the nation's wealth. You could help your rich friends get richer by cutting their taxes and bailing them out when they gamble and lose. You could ignore the needs of the poor for healthcare and education. Your media would appear free, but would secretly be controlled by one person and his family. You could wiretap phones. You could torture foreign prisoners. You could have rigged elections. You could lie about why you go to war. You could fill your prisons with one particular racial group, and no one would complain. You could use the media to scare the people into supporting policies that are against their interests.
Tune in Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. Eastern Time for Liberation Nation with Deacon John, where America comes to hear the truth.
I know this is hard for you Americans to imagine, but please try.
Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time and nearest news with Jason Brentwood. Because when it's time to crush, it's time for Jason. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here. This is Thomas, a.k.a. Mad Painter. I'd like you to join me Monday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Open Canvas. Don't forget to bring an open mind.
Yes, that's right. Bring an open mind to an open canvas. Again, that is Monday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern. Your host, your culture. This is Revolution Radio, freedomfoods.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here.
Now you can share the topics that drive the discussions of your favorite talk shows with TalkStream Live's topic-driven talk radio. List and promote real-time talk radio topics, or post the topics that you want to hear. Hot topics are tweeted and retweeted, and include simple click-to-listen audio links. The future of talk radio is topic-driven talk radio. Available now at TalkStreamLive.com.
Revolution Radio.
You don't see it, do you? How close we are to absolute chaos. The sick ones are sitting on their fat asses, eating and drinking themselves into a stupor, polluting the world without a second thought while it goes down the toilet. Nobody wants to do the nasty work. You know, the shit that we all just think about. Most good citizens are just along for the ride, and they can bitch and moan and complain about everything when it doesn't work out. Get it going.
Revolution Radio, where we do the nasty work. www.freedomfoods.com.
You realize you're caught in a dream. The adventure begins. Put your seat backs and tray tables in upright position as we take a trip in the very fabric of reality. Join me, Andrew Parsons, for Adventures into Reality. Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, 10 a.m. to 12 noon at Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, where information never sleeps.
Is your data safe? Do you have the necessary information to assist you in confidently living through just about any survival situation? Is survival and gardening, off-grid living, medical knowledge, or even natural or man-made DMPs on your list of personal concerns? Do you have your documents and your personal information in a safe place in your hands where you know where it is? Well, check out our preloaded EMP-proof thumb drive. Over 3 gigs of survival documents and how-tos, plus the USDA offline food preservation website, and much, much more, including a surprise bonus we just can't tell you about. With plenty of room left over to store your most important documents. Imagine if a megavirus or computer failure took out your bank, or all the banks for that matter. Are your banking records safe in your hands? So when they get things fixed and repaired, you can say, hey, look, this is what I had. You had it, I want it back. Is your personal data safe? Family records, addresses, phone numbers? Squeeze on over to freedomslips.com. Yes, that's www.freedomslips.com. Click the banner on the homepage for the EMP-proof bullet drive to get the full scoop of everything that we offer. So, folks, keep your data safe for your peace of mind. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here. Revolution Radio. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
All right, we're back. I could do music for you. I could do music for you. I like to ride big motorcycles. I like to eat pussy too. I like to kick the shit out of punkers and faggots.
Are we on live? Are we on any broadcast channels, or are we just podcast here?
I've got no idea. We got about 15,000 people listening to us.
You'll be finding out soon, I can assure you.
Well, you broke in. You didn't let me finish it. I like to ride big motorcycles. I like to eat pussy too. I like to kick the shit out of punkers and faggots. And if you don't like it, fuck you. How about that? Now, my guest today is.
Hey.
What's that?
You got to remember, I'm your multicultural liberal friend here.
Hey, I know that, man. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, Gordon, the Republicans and Democrats are just two wings of the same bird, and that's a vulture. It ain't no eagle. Hey, what happened to Mike Harris? I thought we just had him on for a second.
I'm trying to get Michael here. Let's see if I can. I'll ring him up. See if he's home. Because frankly, I have a dental appointment coming up here today, and we won't tell people exactly. Yeah, sure we would. I really need to go to that for reasons. So I want to make sure Michael's there. I'm surprised that I'm at all coherent today.
Well, since I'm not Percodon here, I'm in Texas. They'll let me have Percodan, but I can't have pot. So
they'll lock you up and be beating you like a redheaded stepchild.
Yeah, they don't like me much in Texas. That's why I was in a 45-year exile. But hey, I kind of just not to bring religion into it. But I kind of like living in the body of Christ here in Texas now.
I do. They tried to name a submarine after the town, and there were complaints that you can't name a nuclear submarine after the body of Christ. Corpus Christi, to those of us who don't speak Latin. But and nobody speaks Latin anymore.
Thank God.
I love the town.
Now, let me ask you about one of the things that I wanted to ask you about while I've got you here. And folks, let me tell you something. If you realize that you don't get this kind of programming on RBN, Genesis, or any of these other so-called patriot networks, support Revolution Radio. That's freedomslips.com or freedomslips.com. And this is a listener-supported station. Their only source of income is your donations. And I am a listener-supported broadcaster here. But if you send me a donation, I'll send you the PDFs of my books. I've got Mystery Babylon, The New World Order Unveiled. Let me share the cover with you. 2,000 years ago, the Bible told us of the coming of the New World Order as the eighth beast, the mark of the beast, and warned us about the Jews who say they're Jews but are not. Jesus told us they were liars and of their father Satan. In this book, the past meets the future. You can also go to my website, freeamerican.com. You can make a donation with the donate button there, or you can go to shop.freeamerican.com and get any of my books and my video, The True Face of FEMA. Just starting to get orders for it now. People are realizing that we filmed Colonel John Brinkerhoff. Have you ever met Colonel John Brinkerhoff from FEMA, Gordon?
No, I have not, but I used to actually, I was a contractor for FEMA. I helped design as an engineer emergency communications aircraft for them many years ago.
Now, he said in a lecture to law enforcement in Albuquerque, New Mexico, Kirtland Air Force Base, Sandia Labs, Colonel Brinkerhoff said, we're in for a long war. It may be longer than the Cold War. And this war, unlike any of the other wars, is going to be fought on American soil. I filmed this 10 years ago after they rolled FEMA into Homeland Security. In case of a single outbreak of smallpox in a major metropolitan area, We'll need 400,000 well-armed, well-trained, organized, disciplined troops to control the American people, because some of them just won't follow orders. I guess that means, yes, sir.
400,000. Our army has about 2,000 of those. Wonder where they're going to find the rest.
Well, it's either illegal aliens or they're going to bring in the rapid strike force from China, made of Chinese. Maybe that's why they're teaching the Chinese soldiers how to speak English.
You mean, I'm not going to say it. I was going to say English, but that's wrong, so I'm not going to say that.
Now, he's asked, are you talking about the National Guard, Colonel? No, they're going to be in Iraq, they're going to be in Afghanistan, they're going to be in Iran, they're going to be in Syria, they're going to be somewhere else. But no, we need a cheap source of well-armed, well-trained, organized, disciplined troops. It looks like they're making our police forces into it. It's what happened in Boston. You know, we got a saying here in Texas, Gordon. You know, one riot, one ranger. That'll take care of it. In Boston, I guess it's one teenager. We need a contingent of troops, SWAT teams.
I hear a phone ringing here, and that's
I think that's yours.
Michael Harris. You're on the air.
Hello, Michael.
I missed your call. I'm at the gym here, so I can give you all 30 seconds. So, what's up? Whose show we on?
We're in Clayton Douglas's show.
Well, hey, Clay, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing pretty good. Yeah, you ought to buck the system, Mike, and have me on your Republic Broadcasting show.
Well, I'm not on Republic anymore, Clay. I'm over at Rents Radio now, and I have been, just last November. So, it's been a while since we talked.
Yes, it has. Yes, it has. Republic wouldn't talk to me, but Rents.
Still, I'm on from 1 to 3 Pacific time on rentsradio.com. So, anybody wants to tune in, you're most welcome, which would be 4 to 6 East Coast time. So,
well, you got that plug there.
I would love to. I'd love to be a guest on your show, and you're welcome back on mine anytime. I'm booked about 2 weeks or 3 weeks in advance right now, but I do your show at any time. I don't think I'm barred from Rents. Rents has been pretty good. I've appeared on his shows before, so I'm not. And since he talks about the Jews who say they're Jews but are not too, I don't think he'd have any problem with me. I'm glad to see you're healthy. The Hell's Angels haven't got to you yet.
what's that now?
I said, glad to see you're still healthy and alive. The Hell's Angels haven't got pissed off at you again yet.
No, I'm doing okay for a middle-aged white guy.
I was hoping to be able to join the Hells Angels. They don't like my Kawasaki.
Well, what are you going to do? They do have prerequisites for membership that Kawasaki's not on it. Anyway, I'm here at the gym. You're dying up a machine, so let me get going. And, Clay, thanks for the invite. Gordon, I'll talk to you soon.
Right.
All right, Mike. Thank you. Bye-bye. All right, Gordon, talk to me about MJ-12. My friend Bill Cooper, right before they killed him, 2 weeks before they killed him, we had talked and we were planning on putting our magazines, his Veritas and My Free American, together and doing it together. We were both on worldwide shortwave. Then they killed him, and then they tried to kill me to get me off of shortwave too. It's hard to do a radio show when you're being drugged for 3 months. What?
Or if you're dead.
What's that?
Or if you're dead.
Yeah. It's but Bill talked about MJ-12, and I heard a mention of you on some other radio show talking about MJ-12. Now, I had a father-in-law. I had quite a list of distinguished father-in-laws. One of them worked on the Aswan Dam project, built a Pogue carburetor before they threatened to kill him if he didn't destroy it. and I had another one, Colonel Loy Conrad, our Marine, who was the one that they designated to take the surviving alien from Roswell to Truman's office. And he told me that there was a small gray and that he communicated telepathically. That was backed up by a woman that put a story out that she had actually been the translator or the go-between with that particular EBE, extraterrestrial biological entity. But she wasn't sure. She thought he was a little deceptive and possibly. What do you know, Gordon? Now I've said that the reason that the UFOs are so discounted and top secret is they don't want you to know that we could go to the moon and have lunch at our base on the moon and be back in time for supper without using a drop of gasoline. What's the truth, Gordon?
Well, Majestic, my limited involvement there in the Majestic reading group ended in the 1980s. Majestic is a government organization of 12 members. It's like a club that doesn't ever meet, by the way, which I wish the rest of government was like that. But people who, under some contingencies, would take on unspecified responsibilities. Since they never told us what those responsibilities were, they never told you much of anything other than you were given access to what the government represents as the truth as of 1977, which was an admission of aliens at Roswell, admission that the United States at the time had diplomatic relations with 3 alien races. That relationship was, and this is, and we're repeating things that were said elsewhere, because if you don't do that, frankly, you're lying, and if you're repeating things, you aren't necessarily repeating the truth either. There's no guarantee that anything you hear anywhere is true. But the indication we received is that we were dealing with at least one hostile civilization, and that we, the government of the United States, had agreed to supply this civilization with a significant number of human beings for its use. People that would go missing and that they would use up. And the evidence we had acquired of how they treated people, we didn't get all the parts back, and you can take that from there.
Now, some of these so-called aliens, I'm not sure if they're aliens or not. I kind of believe we've been flying around in spaceships and that we had a global civilization over 10,000 years ago. One of my guests that's coming up, Michael Tellinger, discovered some cities in South Africa, near the gold mines in South Africa, that are 150,000 years old. So maybe we've been slaves for that long. What are the odds of that?
Well, one of the things that I hear, and this is not a Majestic related issue, but I am told that millions of people on Earth are walk-ins that are inhabited by an alien life form, and that they don't know it. So, that could be, I think it's both of us. I think Richard Kane for sure. He's got that look about it. But that alien life forms have the option of being born as humans. Now, I've been told by people who are authoritative that that's the case. Is it true? I don't know.
Did you get that from Walmart? I mean, is that a personal experience from being in Walmart? I mean...
Well, that Walmart is filled with aliens? Oh yeah, I get that feeling whenever I go to Walmart. I don't have the pure faith in white people that you do, Uh, I think a lot of them might be aliens.
I think it's quite possible. I mean, they've been talking about possession for thousands of years, and I've seen some pretty striking examples of that. You know, don't
Well,
know.
that would explain possession, but the other thing it might well explain is our predilection for religion. That too.
Well, to me, you know, God is the force that keeps our atoms revolving around each other. Determines whether we're going to be made out of wood or made out of flesh, and he don't look nothing like Charlton Heston to me. But
I always thought he was a good-looking guy and an excellent gun owner, despite the fact that he was Jewish.
yeah, yeah.
Or
Hey, I've known some really good dudes out there. Aaron Russo, I put him on the cover of my magazine when he was running for governor. You know, I interviewed him when he was doing Bad as Hell and I Ain't Gonna Take It Anymore. And from freedom to fascism, I certainly promoted that. Benjamin Friedman was another good Jew. And outside of, and maybe you might even throw Dr. Henry Macau out of Canada into that very small, limited group. And if all of these Jews weren't trying to profit off of our, let me add another one. I was really good friends with Jack Hara, who wrote The Emperor Wears No Clothes, and I certainly backed his stand on marijuana, and I backed his work to the point of buying him and financing a shop down there in Van Nuys so while he was working on the book. But outside of the the number of fingers I got on one hand, and that's five. I don't have six like our so-called Nephilim, and we'll be talking about that with other guests later on in the week, along with these 150,000-year-old so and so. I mean, you know, Gordon, I've got, based on everything that we've learned about Colombia and Panama and Afghanistan, you know, the fact that all of these pyramids that we don't have the technology to build today, we can't build them. They stretch all over the world, and they're over 10,000 years old. And we've got those little cart drawings in Peru that you can only see from the air. I think it's quite possible that we have been subject to a civilization. I don't think they are ancient aliens. I think they probably came from this planet and went out into space. And it's quite possible that we've just been slaves of interstellar drug dealers because all of those pyramids are located in prime dope growing regions. What do you think?
you know, I hadn't thought about that. Um, I am pretty sure that the version of history that we have, that civilization, you know, crept to life 5, 10, 15,000 years ago, and that there's been life on the planet for 2 billion or so. I believe that's a fantasy. I believe that we certainly haven't been given not just a straight story, that what we're told is you know, the basis of our planet, that oil takes millions of years to develop, that human beings have only been around for several thousand years, and prior to that we were climbing around in trees. I have a tendency to think all of that's false.
I would think so too, especially since right up here in Glen Rose, Texas, you've got examples of human footprints that beside that of dinosaurs. We've got dinosaurs drawn on cave walls. So, you know, I don't think they just conjured them up out of their imagination. And what about these pyramids? I mean, we've got structures down there in Africa that are 150,000 years old that we couldn't build today in Lebanon, in Egypt. We can't build a pyramid today. We don't have any equipment that can lift a block that high. I know about monatomic gold and its weightless properties. And obviously, you got something flying around there that ain't using jet fuel that is a form of anti-gravity.
Well, I have had the opportunity at one point a couple of years ago to see one of our early anti-gravity aircraft built in the 1950s, and it's a huge flying hockey puck made out of riveted aluminum. Doesn't go real fast, not real pretty. Probably very, very heavy, but you can walk up to it and it's like air hockey. You can bounce it around inside a hangar, and it's big. Makes a lot of whirring noise. It's got a huge bucket of some kind of liquid, a lot of what appear to be ceramic magnets around it, and a big kitchen mixer. I believe it's a Sunbeam or KitchenAid. I couldn't pick out the brand name on it.
That's they actually built one of those in Iran too. There's the Keefe Foundation or something like that. They said they were able to bring to capture one of our drones on that. Oh, and speaking of the drones, I mean we've got those in America now, and I had the distinct feeling, maybe it's just psychic, maybe it's just common sense, that perhaps one of those drones had been used in West Texas to blow up that fertilizer plant that was suing Monsanto. Maybe
well, we have an unusual video that we cannot explain. Now, videos can be falsified. I didn't have that one analyzed. Periodically, we do. And when we have analysis done on videos, we learn that some of them are phony, and that some of them we wish were phony weren't. Now, Clay, I've got to leave you today here and head off to a one of those little medical care situations that came up.
No problem. No problem, Gordon.
And I would apologize for that. Apologize to listeners. But I've enjoyed being on, and I look forward to being on again.
I'll certainly have you back. Thank you very much. And we still need to see about getting these shows that we've done. I've recorded them for YouTube, and we're recording them on Blog Talk and Revolution. I want to get them put up on right next to Stu Webb's page there on Veterans Today.
And we can do that. You're having Stu on tomorrow, I understand.
Yes, sir. Stu Webb will be on my show tomorrow.
Well, his article in Veterans Today is going to upset a lot of people. That's our job.
All right, sir. Thank you very much. I sure appreciate it. Appreciate you being on. All right. Now, I'll open up the phone lines. Now, you can call in. Richard, what's that phone number? I don't have it up in front of me.
The number is, just let me have a look here. The number to call in is 347-688-2902 or Skype Freedom Screen.
All right. The 347-688-2902. I don't know. What about that 855 number? 655-8453. Do we have the correct extension on that?
I don't know if they need, you're talking about your number and extension for the station?
Yeah. No, that's not my number. That's a number I've got for up on my Revolution radio banner. 855-655-8453. It used to be extension 806. But
okay, that's all right. Nighthawk said the first number was fine.
Okay, 347-688-2902. If
Yes.
you've got something intelligent to add here or question to ask, you can certainly call in. I want to also encourage you to make a donation to Revolution. Keep us on the air there. And this is listener-supported radio. And I'm listener-supported too. Now, some people have just ordered the video that I've got on Homeland Security or FEMA, the true face of FEMA. I really recommend that you get that, folks. It's you can see what they're planning, and you can see that it's happening right now. I filmed it almost 10 years ago. We're in for a long war. This war may be it may be more than maybe longer than the Cold War. And the enemy's weak. The enemy doesn't have planes and helicopters and tanks, so they're going to use unconventional methods. The enemy he's talking about, folks, is you, the American people. Now, why are I'm getting a lot of static here. Where's that?
We got a caller, 480.
All right, you've been trying to get in 480. Calling me from Phoenix. Is that it? Who we got?
Nathan, how you doing today, Clinton?
Good. Who are you?
I'm Nathan.
He's Nathan from the chat room.
Nathan from the chat room. I was able to go in there real quick. I've been noticing lately as things are, tensions are getting more and more with, say, Adam Kokesh and other things. I've been trying to figure out the direct rhetoric. I completely agree with the Bill of Rights. I completely agree with the right of self-determination, natural law, and that I was born free. But I can't say for certain that as a citizen of the United States that I'm not a slave. And I also can't say for
That you know what? Repeat that. Wait a minute. Repeat that. As a citizen, you're not.
I can't say for certain that as a citizen that I am a slave or that I'm not. And this is what I'm confused with. Sorry, there's people, traffic going by here. But the issue is that I can't say for certain that I am one of the posterity in the Constitution. I was not signatory to that, and therefore I can't, guarantee that I have any ownership whatsoever. And the only information really that sticks to the wall says that I'm a slave, and that I can attain freedom internationally. I've seen some data as far as the right of self-determination in international law, things like that. But what we've got going on here is the general public basically behaving like a bunch of uneducated people as we are, fighting the hand that feeds us. And it's just infuriating me because I have kids and we're trying to, establish a future for our children. And however that is, I don't really see the approach of butting heads with the powers that be as a good approach. We have to come from a point of educated rhetoric as they do. Whether or not.
Well, okay. So wait a minute. So far, you haven't said a damn thing that made any sense. What are you talking about? You don't want to butt heads? You don't think you're a slave? Oh, why? Because I can go get my pickup truck and go get a beer? Watch. I'm not a slave. What the hell are you talking about, Nathan? You come on my show and you don't make any sense at all. So I won't, unless you can make some sense right now. Unless you can make some sense right now, real quick, get rid of him, Richard. Go ahead, Nathan.
Okay.
Federal Reserve notes are not your property. Therefore, everything you buy is not your property. Therefore, you are owned. Your corporate person is owned. Phil Cooper and the silent weapons for quiet wars makes a lot of sense. The only thing that's missed is the fact that he cannot say for certain in his resting in his place, he cannot say for certain that he was of the posterity in the preamble. And until we can say for certain that we are part of that posterity, rather than just a battery for the matrices that they have laid over us.
So what are you trying to say here? Again, you're talking, but you're not saying anything. What are you trying to? What point are you? You're not a slave. Great, good for you. Everybody else is. Good for them. What are you're not making any sense at all. Get rid of him. I don't want to talk to him anymore. Go, now, if you want to try to make some sense here, this is the reason I generally don't take calls. This is the reason I'm not in a chat room, because most of Americans out there have drank so much fluoride, eaten so many genetically modified foods that they can't make any sense in anything they say. Or possibly, maybe you've just been to college. That's indoctrination, not education. And since my guest for tomorrow is generally Dr. Jake Wade, who runs Timothy Bible College and the Little Red Schoolhouse and been educating and graduating students for the last 20 years. If you really want to get an education, then I would sign up with Timothy Bible College. And if Nathan is an example of the product of the public fool system out there, the NEA, National Education Association, and all that, that's a perfect example. He was just a perfect example for that. Somebody that's talking and not saying a damn thing. My
Nathan
God.
is called back, Clayton.
No, I'm not taking his call. Tell hell with him.
Okay, Nathan, sorry, buddy. He is gone.
All right. Now let me do. Now let's see. I just had somebody on that has more of his intelligence. Let me share more of Gordon Duff. This was all of Gordon Duff, and I just gave you the first part of that about the military has been on the slide into mediocrity, and of course Nathan was a perfect example of that slide of the Americans, the Walmart people out there that have slid into mediocrity or have no friggin' intelligence at all. The bomb hit in 2001, Gordon says, when the Bush, Cheney, Rumsfeld cabal cleansed the military of all competent generals and admirals, leaving political hacks and extremists to do their bidding. Only a military run by criminals would have played along in silence for 9/11, the falsified intelligence on Iraq, the mythical underground cities of Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan. Nope, none have been held to account for this. For $1 trillion worth of heroin dealing, that's an actual figure, for 100,000 rapes, for $3 trillion stolen, for thousands of drone murders, of kidnapping and torture. We were only following orders. When the military talks of duty, honor, country, and offers to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States, it is obviously joking. Vietnam was a watershed for the military. Everybody in the military knew the United States was on the wrong side. There was no Gulf of Tonkin incident, supporting an unpopular dictatorship against a people unwilling to submit to tyranny. Does this sound like Afghanistan? Marine recruits being trained for Vietnam were warned that when they got to Vietnam, they would clearly recognize that the enemy was morally superior and far more military effective than our South Vietnamese allies. American combat veterans returning from Vietnam were invariably anti-war though many now deny it as they live in a propagandized tyranny, a creation of their own inaction and silence. When motorcyclists in America greet one another, the hand signal is two fingers extended, the peace sign. Everyone does. But very few remember the significance. Remember a time when opposing war, when standing against tyranny was a badge of honor. And folks, in that time period, after I got out of the Army, I was selling peace symbols to Kmart and promoting that Vietnam was a tragedy, but you better not in front of me demonize any of my brothers, my Vietnam vet brothers, many of them on motorcycles now, or you will find yourself in the emergency room. Colonel David Hackworth, Gordon Duff says, America's most decorated hero, stood against the war and was removed from the military. Other officers, those who failed to lie about the Phoenix program, inflated body counts, or would remain silent about CIA drug running, were terminated or depersonalized. Well, let's use the real term. They were murdered. After the Vietnam War, two huge scandals remain. America's missing POWs and John McCain's collaboration with the enemies. These scandals, the scandals, and John McCain himself haunt us to this day. Americans who went into Afghanistan and Iraq, however, were lied to. It would be years before any significant opposition to the war would emerge. Without backing from the public, any member of the military that stood for honor would be persecuted or worse. Does the name Bradley Manning come to mind? Does Pat Tillman come to mind? How about those Navy SEALs who become mysteriously accident-prone after the re-death of Osama bin Laden? I wonder how the military explains the heroin trafficking. Afghanistan had wiped out opium production under the Taliban. Remember, I've told you that for years, too. Today, it exports well over 90% of the world's fully processed heroin, narcotics flown to every corner of the world on planes contracted to the Department of Defense and CIA. Doubts? You think the Taliban had an air force? All air traffic controllers in Afghanistan are employees of the U.S. government. Imagine a Taliban 747 land in the Chevreuse Air Force Base in Belgium, or at Camp Blonde Steel in Kosovo, a plane loaded with heroin claiming to be lost. You might think the U.S. military might stop falling for the same gag after a dozen years, and some people wonder why there's a 9/11 truth movement. Not all military are chumps. If the Iraqi army had been allowed to survive, the master bungler Bush, 43 or 41, they're interchangeable, may not have stumbled onto a civil war that killed 5,000 American soldiers. Today, the Syrian army is proving a force for stability in what was once seen as a civil war and is now increasingly apparent to be armed aggression by terrorist groups in service of the world banking cartel. We got somebody else on the line here?
No, I think that was me.
Okay. John McCain's visit to Syria to meet with rebel leaders puts any doubt to the veracity of the above hypothesis, the aforementioned hypothesis, to rest. Pakistan is an interesting example. Veterans Today editor Lieutenant General Hamid Gul was the first prominent military and intelligence figure to cite 9/11 as an inside job. Today, every rational military looks back on his analysis as spot on. Similarly, Pakistani military leaders, such as, and this is Gordon Duff talking, such as my good friend and mentor, former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Admiral Iftikhar Harohi, a leader in the effort to free Dr. Afia Siddiqui, have proven to be men of honor. Former Air Army Chief of Staff, General Assam Brigadier Asif Harun Raja, and dozens of others affiliated with Veterans Today and Opinion Maker, where Major Raja Mujataba is the editor, have taken strong positions against drone attacks and America's corrupt policies in Afghanistan. Pro-democracy demonstrators in Turkey hope the military can rein in the abuses of the Erdogan government. However, many question the continued independence of the Turkish army, who, like Egypt's military, have over the years gotten too close to Israel. Few who haven't worked around Washington, D.C. understand to what degree the America's capital is a sewer of perversion. More than rumors, the Franklin scandal documented pedophile rings of service, not just Congress, but every branch of government and the military up to the Oval Office. We'll be talking about that tomorrow with Stu Webb, too. Friends who worked in the Bush White House, not just the National Security Council, but presidential advisors on intelligence counterterrorism, told of Bush's gay mafia, made up of a majority of top leadership names every American has heard on the news. For the military, it's hard to explain where to begin. The service academies are built on enforced mediocrity, hazing, bullying, and sexual exploitation of every imaginable kind, and some few could ever imagine. Since the late 1980s, religious extremism, fanatic pro-Zionism mixed with sick sexual practices and satanic rituals have been too much of the norm for the military. The well-publicized epidemic of rape, corruption, and incompetence the military is known for would not be possible without the influence of major satanic groups closely related to those that targeted and brought down the Roman Catholic Church, as documented by Friar Malachi Martin. Reform may be hopeless. With the onset of Obama's second term, there's a movement afoot to reform the military, push aside elements that have made the United States the real evil empire in the eyes of much of the world. Heading off the reform movement is General Ray Odierno, Chief of Staff of the Army, Martin Dempsey, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and Chuck Hagel, Secretary of Defense. Arrayed against them is AIPAC and the Zionist lobby in Washington, more powerful than the government itself, backed by John McCain, Joe Lieberman, and the Tea Party and their drug-dealing, whoremongering Wall Street friends. The pervasive decay that has infected the military also carries to the FBI, Homeland Security, and nearly every law enforcement agency in the U.S. This is why they're attacking the sheriffs who you voted in, folks. When an Israeli-trained county sheriff tells his constituents, and remember, the sheriffs are elected in the U.S., that he will defend their rights against the government, I laugh. The same sheriffs run their jails as concentration camps, their police departments as private enforcers for the rich and powerful. The same sheriffs have their elections financed by the organized crime and in much of the U.S. are directly employed by Mexican drug cartels. If they're not, like Sheriff Larry Devers, they are killed. The public opinion is still out on Sheriff Joe Arpaio, who's trying to enforce the laws against the illegals. But it's the same sheriff, according to Gordon Duff, lobby Washington for money for police equipment. The equipment they ask for is armed drones, armored personnel carriers, machine guns, bugging equipment, and heavy weapons. America's police are schooled in political correctness by AIPAC and the ADL, tied to espionage organizations, taught counterterrorism by groups like the Cell, run by organized crime figures, and are taught surveillance by Mossad operatives. In fact, in 2 weeks, top law enforcement leaders, along with the press and media elites in the U.S., will be attending a yearly Solstice celebration in Denver, Colorado, organized by the Satanists. We'll be talking about that tomorrow with Stu Webb. This event happens every year. Local hospitals have been warned that attempts will be made to kidnap a newborn baby intended for use at a ceremony there to be held in an underground liquor storage facility built during Prohibition. If only these were the darkest deeds that the secret societies that President Kennedy warned us about were involved in. There are others, often blamed on terrorists or lone gunmen, the military, some of it, perhaps much of it, is clearly a part. They aren't alone. Americans, elites, are everything but. That is Gordon Duff's article. Stu Webb will be coming on here to talk about this. About this Denver, Colorado, on June 21st and December 22nd each year, the 12 o'clock a.m. to 3 a.m. Mountain Time, known as the Summer and Winter Solstice, the Illuminati Council of 13 bankers hold their Tiffany lamp meetings. These known Satanists perform human sacrifices as part of their satanic rituals at the old Navarre, a former whorehouse and casino, located at 1725, 1727 Tremont Place in Denver, Colorado, across from the Ship's Tavern at the Brown Palace Hotel in downtown Denver, Colorado. They enter the old Navarre through the Ship's Tavern at the Brown Palace Hotel, down the ramp, and between the restrooms is a door that is unlocked and enters a tunnel that goes across the street to the Navarre. During these rituals, a human infant is killed and sacrificed to Satan. The Satanists drink the blood of the infant human they sacrifice and appears before them and goes out to kill the enemies of those Satanists who perform the human sacrifice. Satan appears, well, that's pretty interesting. Now, Stu Webb says this group is known as the Illuminati bankers, the U.S. shadow government leaders who dictate U.S. policy, that are known as Satanists: George W. Bush, H.W. Bush, Leonard Mellman, Larry Mizell, Henry Kissinger, Mayer Rothschild, and David Rockefeller. Grace of Grace and Company, Answer bin Shari, the head rabbi of Israel, and others named. They hold pre-ritual parties where they have sex with children. Many of these pre-ritual parties were held at Leonard and Elaine Middleman's house. Anthony LaVey, son of Anton LaVey, founder of the Church of Satan in America, was castrated by George W. Bush, H.W. Bush, and Leonard Millman, among others, at age 13 at the ritual party. And we got an interview there that we'll make available. Now, how much of this is true, we don't know. Alex Jones filmed them at the one of their little conventions up there in Northern California. And you can, if you can believe that he snuck into these world leaders, you know, I got a bridge there in Arizona I'd be glad to sell you. We'll be talking about this with Stu Webb. And meanwhile, folks, if you go to freeamerican.com, you can learn a lot. You can see about the USS Liberty. June 8th was the 46th anniversary of this attack on America. We should, we had the nukes, we had them in the air, but they were pointed at Egypt, and when they failed to destroy the USS Liberty, when they failed to kill every man aboard, they called the planes back. If we had been doing what we should be, if our military had been doing what they should have been doing, they would have turned those planes on Jerusalem and dropped the atomic bombs on Israel, in my opinion. And anybody that don't want to believe that, then you are working for the same people that ordered the attack, that followed the attack, that initiated the attack against our U.S. servicemen. Matter of fact, let me do this. Let me do this. See if I can pull up the description of it. We got, never mind. We've only got a few minutes left. FreeAmerican.com. If you want to get my books or my videos, you can go to shop, www.shop.freeamerican.com. If you make a donation of any size, at least to cover some of the costs here that it takes to run this show, to keep these websites going, we'll send you a PDF of Mystery Babylon. Basically, it's an Israelite handbook for true Christians, not the Judeo-Christians that were basically like the Catholic Church that were been infiltrated and taken over to keep you as slaves, to keep you as happy slaves, to keep you as dumbed down slaves. Now, my phone number, I'm not exactly in hiding. I am located in Corpus Christi, and the phone numbers will reach me. They're up on my website, freeamerican.com. You can hit a donation button and be taken right to a secure page and make a donation. I also urge you to, if you're in donating mood, if you're an American out there, and you're one of those people that donated $1 billion to the Republicans and the Democrats, which went straight to the media companies that are controlled by dual citizens out there. And anybody that's trying to tell you, oh, Clay's anti-Semitic, Clay's a racist, my guest yesterday was Larry Pratt, who's married to a Hispanic lady from out of the country, and he was listed with me as being a bigot when they were trying to demonize us, the same way they're trying to demonize and prosecute Bradley Manning, and the same way they were trying to demonize and call a traitor Snowden, who basically did the same thing as what was his name in the Vietnam War? It just escaped me for a second. He tried to warn people about what was happening in Vietnam. And of course he was demonized too. Who was that, Richard?
That is the music.
Okay. All right. We're out of time here. We'll see you tomorrow with Stu Webb. Thank you all. God bless you. And thanks for the donation, if you make one.
Okay, Clayton, we're off air.
All right, great.
Okay, that was a good show, Clayton. I gotta get my butt to work. I'm gonna be online